Now, guys, welcome back to one more interesting session upon trying to understand the valuation multiples. And again, this is a continuous series to make you understand and have a deep dive knowledge and understanding upon the valuation metrics. So, again, we started from the price to earning multiple in the previous session. We talked about the inverse of the price to earning multiple as well, that is the earnings yield ratio. We talked about the price to earning growth multiple as well. And in the previous session, we talked about the price to book value multiple. Again, if you have not referred the previous session, please refer my previous videos to have a clear and deep dive understanding upon the valuation metrics as well. Here in this session, we try to cover the price to cash flow multiple. Again, it's a multiple. And before we start with the price to cash flow, so one thing I would just set as a disclaimer. Again, this ratio or this multiple cannot be used to value the index. As in the previous session, we concluded in case of the price to book multiple that the price to book multiple should be used to value or to ascertain the valuations of the index, like be it the Nifty 50 or Nifty 100, Nifty 150 mid cap index, or the Nifty 250 small cap index, the Nifty 500 as a whole, based upon certain reasons and the type of companies that we have, and not the price to earning multiple, right? But here, the index cannot be valued based upon the price to cash flow multiple or the price to cash flow ratio because different companies will be having a different cash generating appetite. Not every company will be generating cash flows based upon their business model or the type of industry in which they operate. And hence, you cannot use price to cash flow at the index level. But again, this ratio or this metric is again very important, being ignored in most of the cases. Again, this ratio or this multiple can be used specifically for the specific set of industries only and not for all the industries per se, right? So just to begin, again, it's a very simple metric, a very simple ratio. So the price to cash flow simply tells us you have the current market price in the numerator, the market capitalization divided by the cash flow from the operations. Correct? So simply it's taking into account the current market price in the numerator and dividing it by the operating cash flow. As simple as that. We all know what is the current market price, as I have been stating in the previous multiples also, right? The current market price is the price of the share trading as on today. So in this multiple, we shall be taking the current market price in the numerator and not the last previous year ended market price. And that is why we tend to call this as a leading indicator. The numerator number is always a leading indicator because this number is impacted by market sentiments. It can be positive, it can be negative. Whereas in denominator, we have the operating cash flows for the company. Operating cash flows. Again, this number is something which can be a lagging indicator because companies do not declare their cash flows or the financial statements on daily basis. They declare only on quarterly basis and annual basis. And the number that we have to take up here is the annual operating cash flow, the previous trailing 12-month ended cash flow, right? Because, and again, be it a lagging indicator, be it this being a lagging indicator, the operating cash flow का number, this amount, a lagging indicator है, but still far more better than the book value and the earnings. Because cash flows cannot be manipulated. Earnings can be manipulated, but cash flows cannot. There can be a few instances where the company might try to manipulate the cash flows also, but the extent to which the book value or the earnings can be manipulated, the cash flow cannot be manipulated. And we have to look at the operating cash flow because cash flow being the most important indicator for the business. And as we like popularly also say, right, that if we talk about the top line, right, the top line, right, if we talk about the top line is being called as the vanity, right, the bottom line is called as the sanity, and the cash flow is called as the ultimate reality. The top line is the vanity, that is your total income or total revenue. It can grow as high as possible. The bottom line, that's the profit after tax, is the ultimate sanity. Because if your higher revenue is not getting translated into profits over a medium term to longer term basis, something is wrong. So, top line being the vanity, your bottom line being the sanity, and the cash flows being the ultimate reality. How much cash flows you can convert from the profits, right? So, usually we talk about a ratio called as a CFO to PAT. We talk about a ratio called as CFO to PAT. It takes into account the cash flow from the operations in the numerator and divide this by the profit after tax. The profit after tax is the bottom line. So this ratio is basically telling us that how much cash we are able to convert from the total profit, because the profits can be manipulative. The earnings can be manipulated by the enterprise, but आप cash flows को manipulate नहीं कर सकते. Here I'll give you one classic example. So for example, if we talk about the company's P&L, the profit and loss statement, the profit and loss statement is also called as income statement. So in the income statement, we talk about the total revenue, the total sales, and the total sales component, which translates to the total income. That total sales component, it consists both of the cash sales as well as the credit sales. The total sales component, it consists of both the cash sales as well as the credit sales. Cash sales is fine because we have sold the goods and we have got the money, and that money is getting reflected in the cash flow statement. So for example, if 100 is our total sales, if 100 is our total sales, again, it doesn't mean that 100 is the total revenue. You will add other income to it, other operating income to it, and then you get the total revenue. Here, I'm just talking about the total sales. So hypothetically, in the P&L, if a company shows a total sales of 100 rupees, and hypothetically, if we try to do a breakdown of it, 40 is the cash sales and 60 is the credit sales. What do I mean by cash sales? The company has sold off the products and services, and the company has got back 40 crores out of that. Correct? That's perfectly okay. That's very well fine. And again, this number will be reflected in the cash flow statement as a cash inflow, as a positive number. Only 40 will be reflected, 60 will not be reflected. I repeat my point, only 40 will be reflected and 60 will not be reflected as cash inflow, because 40 is something which has been actually received. It's a cash inflow. And this will be shown as cash flow from the operating activities. And this will be shown as cash flow from the operating activities. If you know, a cash flow statement is divided into three components. जो आपकी कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट होती है वो तीन कंपोनेंट्स में डिवाइडेड होती है, राइट? इफ आई जस्ट शो यू द स्क्रीनर, वेयर इज माय स्क्रीनर? राइट, इफ आई जस्ट शो यू स्क्रीनर, दो HDFC बैंक इज नॉट अ गुड एग्जांपल टू टेक, बिकॉज फॉर बैंक्स हम कैश फ्लोज नहीं देखते हैं. ठीक है, बैंक्स में टाटा लेक्सी देख लेते हैं, लाइक जस्ट अ रैंडम एग्जांपल. अगेन, इट इज नॉट अ स्टॉक रिकमेंडेशन. Always consult your own investment advisor to buy and sell the stock. All the examples which I am taking here are just for education purpose. Again, if you're liking this video, liking the content, do subscribe and press the bell icon. It will motivate me to bring up more such educational videos. Now, this cash flow statement is always divided into three components. Cash flow from the operating activities to get the components. We have the cash flow from the financing activities. I'll just like minimize it. Cash flow from the operating activities, cash flow from the investment activities, investing activities, and cash flow from the financing activities. You sold, you made sales, that 40 will be recorded in the cash flow from the operating activities, because the operating activities का section वो cash flows को record करता है, which is linked to the core operations. मेरा business बना ही था goods and services को बेचने के लिए. That's my core operations. So for example, if Tata Elxsi is here, the core operation is to sell the softwares, to sell the technology. Tata Motors, the main core operations is to sell cars, right? To sell trucks, correct? To sell the commercial vehicles or the private vehicles. The main purpose for which the business has been set, and उस पर्पस से आप जो कमाते हो और आपके जो खर्चे होते हैं उस पर्पस के लिए, करेक्ट, उस रेवेन्यू को कमाने के लिए, वो हमेशा यू विल रिकॉर्ड इन द टोटल ऑपरेटिंग एक्टिविटीज, कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम द ऑपरेटिंग एक्टिविटीज. आप बिजनेस को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए कुछ खर्चा कर रहे हो, और डूइंग सम काइंड ऑफ कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर, investments, selling of assets or buying investments, all that kind of things will be reflected in the cash flow from investment activities. Whereas you take loan, you pay loan, right? You pay dividends, you get dividends. All these kind of activities which are financial in nature are recorded in the cash flow from the financing activities. Correct? In this case, we sold off the goods and services, right? We'll come back to the PPT. हमने अपने goods and services बेचे 100 रुपए के, 40 was cash sales. 40 will go in the cash sales, cash flow from the operating activities. Now, the problem is with 60. Now here I do not mean that 60 is always a problem. Every business runs on some credit. Not every business is 100% cash, right? Because long-term contracts होते हैं. The businesses tend to enter themselves into long-term contracts. The sell of the goods and services and the payment are based on contractual basis, monthly, quarterly, yearly. For example, if it's a big project, right? There might be some big company, like for example, it might be some L&T, it might be NTPC, it might be like Bharat Forge. They're sending or they're making of the products for the client, but the order value is more than millions and millions of dollars. and the person cannot pay you just now. He has to show the person B who has purchased from your business will sell off the goods like to some other party, get the money and pay you back. Correct? So such kind of high value contracts, it takes time to get converted into cash. ये भारी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स होते हैं, पैसा एकदम से इसमें लेना देना नहीं हो सकता है. करेक्ट. तो यहाँ पे ये देखो, 60 इज अ प्रॉब्लम. वाई 60 इज अ प्रॉब्लम? इफ इट इज नॉट रीपेड, because this is something we have sold off the goods and services to a debtor, and the person is yet to pay us back 60. Now here I do not mean this 60 always defaults. Correct? But the market cycle might turn. The situation might not be so good. It might turn into a situation of a depression, a black swan events, or these kind of war-like situations can be there where the businesses are going shut and the companies aren't able to make the payments. In this cases, the 60 can default. Correct? But in P&L, we have to include the 60 as well. Why? Because the profit and loss statement is based upon accrual system of accounting. It's not based upon cash basis of accounting. Accrual system of accounting. Again, it's the principle of accounting. That is, you need to record the transactions irrespective of the fact the cash is received or not. You have to record the transactions in the P&L irrespective of the fact the cash is received or not. आपको कैश मिला है या नहीं मिला, आपने सर्विस प्रोवाइड कर दी है, आपने गुड्स बेच दिए हैं, आपको पैसा आता रहेगा, बट आपको वो ट्रांजैक्शन अप टू दैट अकाउंट you have to reflect in the profit and loss statement or the income statement per se. But a cash flow statement will always record those transactions in which cash is actually received. As the name suggests, cash flow statement. It's not based upon accrual. Actual cash जो आपको मिला है और actual cash जो आपने दिया है वही रिकॉर्ड होगा कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट में. Now, in one way we can say the P&L is getting overly inflated or boosted up directly or indirectly up to the extent of the $60. There is high possibility that 60 might not come back. And that is the problem with the profit and loss statement. And that is where the P&L can be manipulative. Sometimes the companies, not all the companies, but sometimes on quarterly basis, because annual पे करना मुश्किल होता है, because the I would say the company's auditors or the independent auditor, they come into account and they check the company's financials. तो quarterly भी देखते हैं, but annual पे scrutiny थोड़ी ज्यादा है, right? They come into account. Up the thing, they tend to do forward sales on quarterly basis, right? We tend to call this concept as channel stuffing. एक concept होता है in forensic accounting. This concept is something that you learn in forensic accounting. It's called as channel stuffing. The quarter end में companies क्या करेंगी ना? They will make some fake orders. They will try to accumulate the goods and they will dispatch it via their ships or vans to the state or the, I would say, the province or territory of the customer. So, for example, if me as a customer enters into the business's app, मैं कंपनी की ऐप पे जाता हूँ एंड कंपनी की ऐप पे जाके आई सेलेक्ट द गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज व्हिच आई विश टू परचेज. So those goods and services are a part of my watch list as of now. I have not purchased those goods and services as of now. As a customer, I have not yet placed the order to buy the goods and services. They're still in my watch list. And many of the people do it. Many of the people do not buy the products and services, but have those goods and services like in their watch list. The company tracks all that data. The company has that technology, that AI to track all that data. And that is why the next time we visit the website, the related products or the products closer to the watch list gets popped up, right? So based upon the watch list, the company will try to pack up the orders and sell via their vans or ships. And जहां पर भी वो लोग रहते होंगे उनकी स्टेट के वेयर हाउसेज होंगे, बिकॉज कंपनीज के वेयर हाउसेज तो लाइक सब सिटीज में होंगे, बिकॉज द कंपनी इज वर्किंग ऑन अ पैन इंडिया लेवल और अ ग्लोबल लेवल. शिप से एक्सपोर्ट करा या वैन से भेजा, लाइक फॉर एग्जाम्पल लाइक आपके कस्टमर दिल्ली में थे एंड द कंपनी इज बेस्ड आउट ऑफ राजस्थान, वहां से गुड्स मैन्युफैक्चर हुए एंड दिल्ली के वेयर हाउस में रख दिए. एक्चुअल सेल्स हुई नहीं है. एक्चुअल सेल्स हुई नहीं है. द एक्चुअल सेल्स हैज नॉट बीन मेड येट. Correct? But the company has shown this as sales. The company has shown this as sales, and that is something which is wrong. On quarterly basis, some companies tend to do it, and that is why the quarterly P&L might be boosted up. On an annual basis, when the auditors takes it, the numbers get normalized. Correct? And this concept is called as channel stuffing, and that is why P&L can be manipulative and cash flow cannot. And based upon this, we look into something called as a CFO to PAT ratio. It basically tells us that how much cash flow is getting converted from PAT. हम simply, if a company has made 100 crores worth of PAT, how much of that is getting translated towards cash flow? Obviously, 100 won't be there. But if we get a 40 to 50% ka number, that's really very good. At least 40 to 50%. And more than that is extremely amazing. So, for example, if a CFO to PAT ratio for a company is 40%, it means the company is able to convert 40% of its PAT to cash flows. अगर कंपनी का प्रॉफिट 100 रुपए का हुआ है, if a company has made a bottom line which is your sanity bottom line of 100 crores, 40 has been converted to cash flow from operations, not the total cash flow from the operations. CFO में 40% कन्वर्ट हो गया है, and that's really really very good, and that is something we want. At least bare minimum 40%. तो पैट कन्वर्ट कर लो, correct, and that is something we want. And why we are looking at a CFO multiple, at a CFO only? हम CFO ही क्यों देख रहे हैं? हम कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम इन्वेस्टिंग एक्टिविटीज क्यों नहीं देख रहे इन रेशियो में? राइट, वी कुड हैव डन कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम इन्वेस्टिंग बाय पैट, वी कुड हैव डन कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम फाइनेंसिंग बाय पैट, बट हम CFO ही क्यों कर रहे हैं? बिकॉज कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम द ऑपरेशंस is giving you a picture of the actual cash inflows and actual cash outflows from the core activities of the business. Actual cash inflow आपको जो हुआ है and actual cash outflow आपको जो हुआ है from the core activities of the business, right? And if something is left, because पैसा तो आपका मेन core operating activity से बनेगा ना, आप वहां से पैसा बनाओगे एंड उस पैसे को आप इन्वेस्टिंग में लगा सकते हो, करेक्ट? ये एक इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्ट होता है टू अंडरस्टैंड द लिंकेजेस विद इन द कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट ओनली. आप कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम द ऑपरेशंस में से यू आर एबल टू जनरेट इनफ मनी एंड यू कैन री इन्वेस्ट दैट मनी. द री इन्वेस्टमेंट विल बी शोन नॉट इन द ऑपरेटिंग एक्टिविटीज बट इन द कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम द इन्वेस्टमेंट एक्टिविटीज. नाउ यू गाइस कैन आर्ग्यू कि इन्वेस्टिंग के लिए हम लोन भी तो ले सकते हैं. मैनी कंपनीज टेंड टू टेक डेट, मार्केट से लोन लेंगे एंड फिर उसको कैपेक्स में, कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर के लिए इन्वेस्ट कर देंगे. अगेन दैट इज ऑल्सो नॉट बैड. बहुत कंपनीज मार्केट में लोन लेती हैं, बट देयर इज अ वे वी ट्राई टू इंटरप्रेट दी स्टेटमेंट्स कि इज द कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम द ऑपरेशंस सफिशिएंट इनफ टू डू केपेक्स? इज द कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम द ऑपरेशंस सफिशिएंट इनफ टू री इन्वेस्ट? क्या आपका बिजनेस इतना पैसा जनरेट कर पा रहा है कि आप उससे प्रॉफिट कमा के अपने बिजनेस में री इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हो या नहीं? राइट? तो इफ आई सी इन हेयर माई कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम द ऑपरेशंस इज 812 crores. Ignore this data as of now. Is 812 crores. Now I need to check, is this 812 crores sufficient enough to do capex? Sufficient enough to do investing activities? Now here I can compare this with what? I can compare this not from the total of the cash flow from investing activities. It's a net number. इसको मैं अपने capex से ही compare करूंगा. I'll compare this with my capital expenditure, and that is fixed assets purchased. Fixed assets purchased. My fixed assets have been purchased worth 16 crores. I have generated 812 crores from cash flow from the operations. 812 करोड़ का कैश मैंने कमाया है. And my expenditure has been 16 crores. Right? I can sufficiently fulfill that. I can sufficiently fulfill that. मैं ये पैसा मैं यहां से भी यूज कर सकता हूँ. ये हो गया अपना एसेट लाइट इंडस्ट्रीज. हम पीटीसी इंडस्ट्रीज पे आते हैं जो थोड़ा एसेट हैवी इंडस्ट्री है. ठीक है, यहां पर मैं देखूंगा मेरा कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम द ऑपरेशंस 14 करोड़ का जनरेट हुआ है. 14 करोड़ का, कम 14 करोड़. इन्वेस्टमेंट एक्टिविटीज, एसेट्स परचेज्ड 190 crores. My 14 crores are not enough. My 14 crores are not enough. And that is the reason in your asset heavy industries, the capex driven industries, cyclical industries like a PTC industries or defense, aerospace, metals, cement, infrastructure, capital goods, real estate, your cash flow might be less. Your cash flow from the operating activities might not be sufficient enough to pay for the capex. And based upon this, we cannot say that the company is bad. Though we say that cash flow is the ultimate reality, cash flow is the best indicator. But for these type of businesses, telecom also, cash flow they have to generate bare minimum, but they do a lot of reinvesting. उनके projects बहुत होते हैं. They have to lay down pipelines, towers, factories, aerospace बनाना है. They have to make up the components, plane बनाना है, factory बनानी है, highways बनाने हैं, roads बनाने हैं. राइट? आपको लाइक माइनिंग करनी है, ऑयल रिफाइनिंग करनी, ह्यूजली कैपिटल इंटेंसिव, एंड दे बर्न कैश, एंड दे बर्न कैश, करेक्ट? So in such cases, cash flow might not give you the true real picture. Here, understanding the business model is crucial. And here, I do not mean that do not invest in such type of companies. These companies have made huge wealth for investors. Such type of companies, years and years, have made huge wealth for investors despite being less cash flows, despite having less cash flows or being cash flow negative. Because the business model is such that, the business model is such that, correct? Coming back to our word, to our PPT. So that is the way, taking it further, your price to cash flow. ठीक है? हमने करंट मार्केट प्राइस शेयर कर लिया, एंड यू डिवाइड दिस ओनली बाय द ऑपरेटिंग कैश फ्लो. तो फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ माय मल्टीपल कम्स आउट टू बी, अगर मेरा प्राइस टू कैश फ्लो का मल्टीपल आता है 50, ठीक है, इट मीन्स फॉर अ $1 वर्थ और अ ₹1 वर्थ ऑफ ऑपरेटिंग कैश फ्लो, आई एम विलिंग टू पे ₹50 फॉर दैट कंपनी. My company is generating a ₹1 worth of operating cash flow, and for that I'm willing to pay ₹50 to buy that company. ठीक है? अब नॉट मेनी वेबसाइट्स विल गिव यू दिस नंबर. ये नंबर आपको खुद से करना पड़ेगा हमेशा कैलकुलेट. ठीक है? इफ आई गो टू स्क्रीनर, माई करंट मार्केट प्राइस इज 4985 फॉर दिस कंपनी. ठीक है? मैं 4985 को ऑपरेटिंग एक्टिविटी से मैं डिवाइड कर देता हूँ. 4985, 14985 डिवाइडेड बाय 14. बहुत बहुत बड़ा नंबर आएगा. 14985 divided by 14, 1070, correct, is the price to free cash flow. And again, this number is very high. People might say the company is overvalued. कैश तो बहुत ही कम है, आपका बेस तो बहुत छोटा है ना, कैश तो बहुत ही कम है. सो अगेन फॉर सच टाइप ऑफ कंपनीज दिस रेशियो माइट नॉट बी गुड. बट इफ यू सी कंपनी कॉल्ड एज अ टाटा एलेक्सी, जो हम देख रहे थे इससे पहले, वहां पे लाइक इट शुड वर्क आइडियली. 3977 का प्राइस है, एंड कैश फ्लो 812. 3977 का प्राइस है, एंड कैश फ्लो इज 812. सो 3977, द करंट मार्केट प्राइस, डिवाइडेड बाय 812 ऑपरेटिंग कैश फ्लो, इट गिव्स मी 4.8. The 4.8 is what? 4.8 is nothing but the price to free cash flow. Again, seems reasonable. For IT companies, for IT companies to be very specific, I'm talking about here. Everybody, I want your full attention. For IT companies, you look something called as a cash flow yield. You look something as a cash flow yield. IT companies में आप क्या देखते हो? कैश फ्लो यील्ड. कैश फ्लो यील्ड. व्हाट्स कैश फ्लो यील्ड? व्हाट्स द कैश फ्लो यील्ड? Cash flow yield is nothing but how much free cash flow that you are generating. How much free cash flow that you are generating divided by the company's market price. How much free cash flow that you are generating dividing by the company's market cash flow yield. So यहाँ पे you aren't taking into account the operating cash flow. You are taking into account the free cash flow to firm. Free cash flow to firm. I won't go much deep dive into it because it's a concept of DCF. It is basically your PAT adjusted with tax, correct? You add back your depreciation and the amortization, and you subtract your capex and your change in working capital. Profit after tax, you add back your depreciation and the amortization because these being non-cash expenses, आपके पॉकेट से कुछ पैसा नहीं जाता है. ठीक है? जब भी डेप्रिसिएशन आपके टैंजिबल एसेट्स या एमोर्टाइजेशन आपके इनटैंजिबल एसेट्स पे चार्ज होता है. केपेक्स आप कितना खर्चा कर रहे हो कंपनी को आगे बढ़ाने में, एंड द वर्किंग कैपिटल चेंजेस, द डिफरेंस इन द करंट एसेट्स माइनस करंट लायबिलिटीज. दिस गिव्स यू FCFF. So free cash flow to firm basically tells you that how much cash is left with the firm after meeting all the capex needs and working capital needs. How much cash flow is left with the firm after meeting all the capex needs and the working capital needs. इन सब के बाद कंपनी के पास कितना पैसा बचता है. And that is something again which is very, very important. Free cash flow to firm is really very, very much used, right? And that is something that we need to. And the free cash flow to firm is also called as unlevered free cash flow. Free cash flow to the firm is also being called as unlevered free cash flow. Correct. तो अगर मैं इफ आई गो टू द वेबसाइट मार्केट स्क्रीनर, यहाँ पे मैं जाऊँ, ठीक है, मैं पीटीसी इंडस्ट्रीज का देखूँ, प्राइस अराउंड कितना चल रहा था पीटीसी इंडस्ट्रीज का। गो हियर, गो टू पीटीसी इंडस्ट्रीज। 4985 का इसका प्राइस चल रहा है। ये 14992। यहाँ पे लाइक फाइनेंशियल्स का ऑप्शन होता है, इन फाइनेंशियल्स में आई जस्ट वेंट टू फाइनेंशियल रेशियोज। दुनिया भर के सब रेशियोज मिल जाएंगे, मुझे चाहिए इसका अनलीवर्ड फ्री कैश फ्लो। अनलीवर्ड फ्री कैश फ्लो, ठीक है। अब यहाँ से यू आर गेटिंग द परसेंटेज ग्रोथ रेट। ये 5 ईयर CAGR आपको मिल रहा है कंपनी का। 83% से कंपनी अपने कैश फ्लो बढ़ा रही है, 70% से अपने कैश फ्लो बढ़ा रही है, राइट। इधर आपके CAGR से इतने इतने परसेंटेज से, ठीक है, वो बढ़ा रही है कैश फ्लोज, ठीक है। तो यहाँ पे यू विल गेट बेसिकली ऑल डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ रेशियोज, बट कैश फ्लो यील्ड आपको स्टिल कैलकुलेट करना पड़ेगा। कैश फ्लो यील्ड आपको स्टिल कैलकुलेट करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि यहाँ पे यू हैव द ग्रोथ रेट फॉर एवरीथिंग, करेक्ट, एंड नॉट द एब्सोल्यूट नंबर्स। एंड एब्सोल्यूट नंबर्स आपको हमेशा कैलकुलेट ही करने पड़ेंगे। एब्सोल्यूट नंबर्स आपको हमेशा कैलकुलेट करने ही पड़ेंगे। आपकी कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट्स ये देखो, आपका लीवर्ड फ्री कैश फ्लो यहाँ पे दिया हुआ है। तो लीवर्ड फ्री कैश फ्लो, करेक्ट। कंपनी का प्राइस अगर चल रहा है 15,000 के आसपास, 4985, तो लीवर्ड फ्री कैश फ्लो इज अभी नेगेटिव। इट्स नेगेटिव एज ऑफ नाउ, करेक्ट। सो अल्टीमेटली कांट जज सच टाइप ऑफ कंपनीज। You go to Infosys Limited. Again, no stock recommendation. Financials में went to cash flow. 3.6 बिलियन, 3.6 बिलियन का इसके पास कैश फ्लो है। एंड कंपनी का प्राइस कितना चल रहा है? 1250, ठीक है। 3.6 बिलियन INR का कंपनी के पास कैश फ्लो है, राइट। 3.6 बिलियन INR का कंपनी के पास कैश फ्लो है, करेक्ट। खूब सारा कैश फ्लो है कंपनी के पास, करेक्ट। सो आई बिलीव दीज नंबर्स आर इन USD. These numbers are in USD. I convert these to INR. मैंने इनको INR में कन्वर्ट कर दिया। 307.4, ठीक है। एंड बिलियंस में हमारे पास 3.8 बिलियंस था, 3.8 बिलियन USD। एंड ये रुपीज में कितना होता है? एनीबडी? खूब कैश फ्लो कंपनी के पास है, खूब सारा कैश फ्लो, ठीक है। तो आपके पास $3 बिलियन, 300 करोड़ के आसपास का कैश पड़ा है, करेक्ट। 300 करोड़ के आसपास का आपके पास कैश पड़ा है। So ideally, with so much amount of cash, right, which this company has, so much amount of cash, right? एंड कैश फ्लो यील्ड में हम क्या कर रहे हैं? कैश फ्लो यील्ड में वी आर टेकिंग इनटू अकाउंट व्हाट? कैश फ्लो यील्ड में जब भी हम कैश फ्लो यील्ड नहीं, अब हमें अगर इस कंपनी का कैश फ्लो यील्ड निकालना है, दैट्स द फ्री कैश फ्लो, दैट्स अराउंड $3.8 बिलियन, वी है ना, लाइक वी जस्ट फाउंड आउट, डिवाइडेड बाय द कंपनीज टोटल मार्केट कैप। बिकॉज फ्री कैश फ्लोज को विल हैव टू डिवाइड नॉट बाय द करंट शेयर प्राइस, फ्री कैश फ्लोज पर शेयर को, सॉरी, फ्री कैश फ्लोज को विल हैव टू डिवाइड बाय व्हाट? but the total levered free cash flow, but the total levered cash flow, and not the cash flow per share. So the market cap of Infosys is somewhere closer to $51 billion और like $52 billion के आसपास मार्केट कैप है. ठीक है, लाइक इन्फोसिस की. करेक्ट. एंड जस्ट अ सेकेंड, लेट्स चेक एज वेल. पहले तो अपना कैश फ्लो हम सबको अगर यूएसडी में कैलकुलेट कर रहे हैं, सो जस्ट जस्ट मेक एवरीथिंग इन यूएसडी ओनली. एक सेकेंड, इज इट? हाँ, अब चेंज हुआ यूएसडी में. अराउंड $3.6 billion. अराउंड $3.6 billion. Correct. So $3.6 billion is the levered free cash flow, is the levered cash flow, or the FCFF. The free cash flow to the firm is how much? It is $3.6 billion is the free cash flow to the firm. Correct. Infosys की market cap देखते हैं कितनी है. If I just simply write in here, Infosys total market cap. It stands at 5.9 trillion. 5.9 trillion. 5.09 trillion. Correct. If I do a 5.09 trillion जिसकी मार्केट कैप अगर चल रही है, करेक्ट, और $5.09 trillion is somewhere closer to how much? $50 billion, right? If I want to convert this trillion into billion, right? Trillion into billion, correct? I can simply convert this to a billion. So $5.9 trillion will be somewhere closer to a $50 billion because our levered free cash flows are as in $1 billion. So we'll have to convert this to a $1 billion also, right? So simply have all these things to convert. See, a trillion, if you forget भाई कैसे करना है कैसे नहीं करना है. See, trillion into billion. It says 1 trillion is equal to 1000 billion. एक ट्रिलियन में आपके 1000 बिलियन होते हैं. तो 5 ट्रिलियन में आपके कितने बिलियन होंगे? सिंपल मैथ्स. इफ अ 1 ट्रिलियन हैज अ 1000 बिलियन, करेक्ट, इफ अ 1 ट्रिलियन हैज अ 1000 बिलियन, then a 5.09 trillion will be equal to a 50 billion, correct. 3.8 trillion, 3.8 trillion, I'll go to the excel file and go to the excel file and go to the excel file. Free cash flow yield, FCFF, okay, is nothing but levered free cash flow divided by the company's market cap. I'm taking into account not the free cash flow per share, total free cash flow. And that is why I'm not dividing it by the price per share. It is the total market cap is equal to $3.8 billion is the free cash flow. And I divide this by 500. Sorry, 50 billion dollars being the market cap. I get 7.6%. I can convert this to percentage. 8%, 7.6%. It shows Infosys has become sheerly undervalued. Undervalued हो गई company. Why? Because the market price, simply, if your cash flow yield is rising, so when will the cash flow yield rise? Cash flow yield, it generally tends to rise when the market cap is becoming a smaller number, the denominator is becoming a smaller number, and the numerator, there's a free cash flow to firm. The actual cash of the firm is becoming a higher number. And we have seen all the correction in these IT spaces. The IT stocks have literally corrected by 30-40% because of this AI issues, Anthropics, and different companies. They're trading at very attractive cash flow yields. Correct? So this is the way we can calculate cash flow yield for a firm. And how to calculate the free cash flow per share? Simply, or how to calculate the price by the cash flow? Coming back here, the free cash flow multiple, the current market price divided by the cash flow per share, the OCF per share, or simply the total market cap of the company divided by the total cash flow from the operations. The total market cap of the company divided by the total cash flow from the operations will simply give you the price to cash flow. Correct? And that is something that we calculated as well. Correct? So it's all about the cash flow multiple. Let's connect in the subsequent session. Thank you so much.